the Autopen. And by the way, you ought to make a big deal out of the Autopen. The Autopen was your president because most of the things were signed by Autopen. And you're not allowed to do that. I signed very little. Now I just sign everything because it's just so crazy. But, like I had the other day, we elevated a general to 4 stars. I think you should sign that. That's a big deal. A general who did a great job was elevated to 4 stars. And I had the general in, and I signed it in front of him, held it up. You got to sign that. You can't give it to an Autopen. And you can always tell an Autopen. One thing, it has 2 little tiny dots. You know that? 2 little dots. You know what that's from? 2 pins. They go bing, bing. They're wonderful things. But you got to sign it. And the law is you have to sign it. If somebody's, telling the Autopen person, he has to be authorized by the President of the United States. Well, he wasn't. The guy barely knew the President. How many times did you speak to the President, right? He said 2. And they just spoke about the weather. It was like this. But he was never authorized to sign. And I think 95% of the things were signed by Autopen. You can tell because the Autopen is a nice, clean signature, and his signature's a mess. The only thing he signed was, which is nice, was Hunter's pardon. That's the only thing that we can find that he signed. Most of it he didn't sign. So somebody's sending papers to sign, and he wasn't the president. First of all, the election was rigged. You ought to have voter ID. You ought to insist on it. You ought to insist on it. Can you imagine? In California, they not only don't have voter ID, but if an official at the voting booths, which they don't have, by the way, because it's all mail, if an official, a voting official, even asks somebody for voter ID, sir, would like to see your identification. Do you come from our country? They put him in jail for tampering with the election. Okay? We got to straighten this out before it gets too crazy. California is more corrupt than any place. California is more corrupt than Minnesota. And I won Minnesota. Well, Tom's going, I think so. Well, it's close. It can't be proportionately, probably nothing's more corrupt, right? We got to win something. Yeah, right. He says you got to win. I'll tell you what, I did great there 3 times. I was surprised 3 times. Those elections are corrupt. They got you one time, too. But I heard a long time ago, but they got you. But they got to straighten those out. But we have to have voter ID. And, when you confront a Democrat about voter ID, like in a debate or something, I said it a couple of times with Biden, and they're very embarrassed when they say, we want voter ID, voter identification. The only reason somebody doesn't want that is because they want to cheat. Our elections are crooked as hell. And you can not only win elections over that, and not only win future elections, but you'll win every debate because the public is really angry about it. And you ought to pass the SAFE Act, or whatever you're going to call it. Are we going to SAVE Act or the Save America Act? I think we're going to change the name a little bit. You're going to put that up for a vote? I think everybody in this room certainly should do it. And it's a bad vote for them because they're voting against things like voter ID and other things that are almost equal to voter ID. But when somebody says, no, we don't want voter ID, that means they're crooked. And the public understands it. You win elections with that. But I think it would be really important, Save America Act, if you would put that up for a vote. It's got my total endorsement. And all it is common sense things about the election. And they'll fight it like crazy because they cheat. That's the only way they can win. When you have policy so bad, when you have policy with men and women's sports, and they fight like hell for it. They still are. I saw the other day a person that you know very well, a congressman, was fighting like hell. And, I was out the other day with somebody, and I was with an ex-football player. The guy was massive. His leg was like this. And a young woman who plays flag football, and she's very good, supposedly, as an athlete. She's smaller than this guy's leg, okay? And if they were playing football together, he wouldn't even have to run. He could just keep walking. They couldn't take him down. He can't even believe it. But there are so many. They had a race, a long-distance race. They had champion men, women, one of those marathon deals. The man finished 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds sooner. He beat the champion woman by 5 hours. It's so demeaning to women. It's so ridiculous, right? It's so ridiculous. The weightlifting, take a look at the weightlifting records. One record stood for